A war is justified if you're willing to send your kids. Because how can you send somebody else's kids to a war if you won't send your own? So I'm calling right now for Baron Trump. Donald Trump's on, after all, he's had 3 wives, he's had kids by each wife, and nobody's ever served in the military. To my knowledge, a Trump in the last 100 years has never done military service. Well, Baron, you can change that. Enlist in the United States military right now. Do something your father didn't have the courage to do. Do something your father didn't have the patriotism to do. I want to see a Trump in the military.
Okay, but do you think America was justified in joining Israel in the attack on Iran?
No. No.
Why not?
Absolutely not. Because we started the war. I'm not for starting any war. We fired the first shot. Plain and simple. You want to put it in Rambo terms? We drew first blood.
Hold up. This is one of those interviews that instantly goes off the rails. Jesse Ventura didn't just criticize Donald Trump. He went full scorched earth, calling him out on war, courage, and even dragging his own family into the conversation. And trust me, it gets very personal. This debate is basically about whether the US was right to get involved in Iran, and Ventura flips the whole thing, arguing that if you're willing to send people to war, you should be willing to send your own family too. Yeah, you can already tell where this is going. Before I break it all down and give my take, I want you to watch this all the way through, because some of the moments in here, you won't see them coming. Real quick, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. I'm curious. And if you want more breakdowns like this, hit subscribe, like the video, and let's get into it.
Well, Jesse Ventura is a former US Navy SEAL, a former professional wrestler, a former actor, and a former governor of Minnesota. We've had many memorable interviews over the years. I'm pleased to say he joins me again now. Jesse, how are you?
I'm doing good, Piers. It's been a long time for you and I. I tried to retire, but, I tried to retire, but unfortunately, they sent the Gestapo to my high school and they hit it with chemical weapons, which are a war crime. And that brought me back out of retirement to stand up against the war criminal in the White House.
Wow. Well, that sounds suitably dramatic.
Well, that's the way it happened. I mean, I was retired. I hadn't watched the news since the last election. My son said, "You're way better, Dad. You're not tense anymore. Keep it up." And then lo and behold, these ICE characters, I call them the Gestapo, and I think I can do that. And let me get something straight right now, Piers, so people know where I'm coming from. My Uncle Emil fought in World War I. My parents both fought in World War II. My father had 6 bronze battle stars in Europe. My mother was a nurse in North Africa, which predated Normandy, fighting Rommel, the Desert Fox, the greatest German general. Both my parents were World War II veterans. My brother and I are both Vietnam veterans and member of the Navy UDT SEAL. We both did 2 tours to Southeast Asia. So everyone in my family is a war veteran. I wanted to get that out right now, so it'll help with the things that I'm going to say to you in the moments to come.
So ICE agents came to your school, you said?
What's that?
You said the ICE agents came to your school?
Yeah, the ICE agents came to the school where I went to high school, chasing some guy down just like the Gestapo. And I heard people were offended calling them that. Really? I can tell you right now, if my parents would have been alive and they would have seen what happened in Minneapolis, they would have called it the Gestapo too. So they come to my school, they use tear gas and pepper spray at the school. Now here's a question I have, Piers. My Uncle Emil fought in World War I and he was gassed. He came home, but his life was ruined. He could never do anything. What did they do? They outlawed it. Gas using chemical weapons became a war crime. Why is it that you can't use them on your enemy, but you're allowed to use them on your own people. That has always been, where is the media on this? Using chemical weapons against our own people, which is in essence a war crime.
Well, I think I wouldn't describe the gas used by ICE agents as chemical weapons. I mean, that infers weapons of mass
tear
destruction.
gas. They're spraying people from 6 inches away right in their face. I can't use that in war. I wasn't allowed to carry tear gas or any type of chemical weapon in war. It's banned from war. It's considered a war crime. You can't use it against your enemy, but you can use it against your own people. Doesn't something ring wrong there for you, Piers?
Well, a lot rang wrong about what was going on in Minnesota, and I'm very glad that it has been resolved, at least for now. And I think
it
Donald
hasn't
Trump
been resolved.
Well, no, not completely, but
nothing's been resolved.
No, I understand.
We have 2 dead people here.
Yeah,
2 people were killed by the Gestapo here.
Yeah, I understand. And those investigations are ongoing, but at least the ICE activity that was going on and the way it was being conducted has been removed from Minnesota, which is a good thing. And I thought what happened was appalling. And I said so at the time. Let me ask you about Iran and your view of this war.
Well, here's how I feel about it. There's a simple thing as a leader. And you know this, having been in the military. Trump wouldn't know it because he's a draft-dodging coward. But anyway, it's this. A war is justified if you're willing to send your kids. Because how can you send somebody else's kids to a war if you won't send your own? So I'm calling right now for Barron Trump, Donald Trump's son. After all, he's had 3 wives, he's had kids by each wife, and nobody's ever served in the military. To my knowledge, a Trump in the last 100 years has never done military service. Well, Barron, you can change that. Enlist in the United States military right now. Do something your father didn't have the courage to do. Do something your father didn't have the patriotism to do. I want to see a Trump in the military. Everybody in my family is served, so I think I can say that with all due confidence. Come on, Trumps. Don't just reap the benefits of this free world. Somebody put on the uniform, and that's you, Barron. And I heard the excuse that Barron might be too tall. David Robinson served on active duty. He was 7 feet tall before he ever went to the San Antonio Spurs basketball team. David Robinson went to the United States Navy Military Academy. He's one of my officers, not directly, but he would have been.
Okay, look, it's one argument that a Trump should serve. That's a perfectly reasonable argument to make. A lot of people feel that way. But it doesn't change what's going on in Iran. What is your view of this war? Do you think it's a legitimate war? Many people think that the Iranian regime has been the instrument of terror through the Middle East for 40 years.
Of course they have been. Of course they have been, Piers. But wait a minute. Trump then calls you guys NATO cowards. Wait a minute. NATO is set up to protect. That means that if a NATO country is attacked, they will all join together to repel it. It doesn't go in reverse. It doesn't mean if one of the NATO countries starts a war that all the others have to join in. That ain't part of the deal. The deal is protection, not aggression. And we started this war, and then he's calling you guys a bunch of cowards because you won't come in and help him. Well, why didn't he talk to you beforehand? And second of all, that isn't what the mission is. The mission is to protect the countries if they're attacked, not to go on the offense and do the attacking.
Okay, but do you think America was justified in joining Israel in the attack on Iran?
No.
Why not?
Absolutely not. Because we started the war. I'm not for starting any war. We fired the first shot. Plain and simple. You want to put it in Rambo terms? We drew first blood.
Many would argue, of those who support the war, that Iran had drawn a lot of blood through this regime for a very long time. They had supported and propped up. Well, hang on, Jesse. They had armed Groups like Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah, for decades, they had wreaked utter havoc, drawing enormous amounts of blood, and that actually the reason America and Israel had to deal with them now was that they were imminently going to get a nuclear weapon and may well use it. What do you say to that?
Well, here's what I say. Let's get the real history in. You know, I listen to people like Congressman Lawler in New York. They all love to go back to 1979, the day the Ayatollahs took over. They conveniently don't go back to when I was alive. I'm a little older than them. Let's go back to 1953, shall we? When Iran had a Democratic elected president. The United States didn't like him. We pulled a coup d'etat, and what did we do? We stuck the authoritarian dictator, the Shah, in power. That's when the I Hate America started, was way back in the 50s when we interfered in their democratic elections. But how convenient we are that we forget that. Then in 1979, what took place? The Ayatollahs took over, who were probably worse than the Shah. But let's remember, the hatred of America was started by America. It was not started by the Iranians. We interfered in their government way back in the 50s and overturned their democratic elected president, and then the dictatorship started with the Shah and now went to the Ayatollahs, and here we are today. But I'd like for Congressman Lawler to at least try to go back in history from before he was born to see what could have occurred, and that the United States was the person that caused the hatred between the two countries.
You know, Jesse, I know you're very scathing of Trump now. There was a time when you were on more friendly terms. Here's a clip from you both at WrestleMania 20.
You know what? I think that we may need a wrestler in the White House in 2008.
When you look at that, Jesse, I mean, that was 12, 13 years ago, I think. Trump has also been made a WWE Hall of Famer, which I know has angered you.
Yep.
How do you feel now looking back at that clip?
I feel that simply I was doing my job. I was doing what I was asked to do at the WWE. Trump being a Hall of Famer is a tragedy. This guy has never been in the ring. I got a good friend, Ken Patera, Olympian, first man to overhead press 500 pounds, 25 years in the wrestling business. Kenny Patera is not in the Hall of Fame. Donald Trump does not belong in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. He never earned it. You know what I had to do to get in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame? At one point in my career, I wrestled 63 consecutive nights in a row. That's how you get in the Hall of Fame. When I was referring to putting a wrestler in the White House, I was talking about me, not him.
Really? That was a bit ambiguous.
Absolutely. I was the former governor of Minnesota. I'm the only real former wrestler. I don't include him. He's only in the Hall of Fame because he stopped an investigation against Vince McMahon, a sexual stuff.
Do you intend to run again for governor and therefore maybe president?
I don't necessarily intend to run again, but I'm working on something that could send me straight to Washington and go face to face with this guy.
Really? What, you would run for president?
Plans may be in the works.
I mean, he can't run for president again, so what would that involve?
Well, you'll have to find out, wait and see. I'm not going to spill it here.
You're not going to crash
But I'll put it to you this way. Wait. Piers, I'll put it to you this way. We withstood the onslaught of the Gestapo in Minnesota. Well, I was taught in war to do this. You ensure that your backyard is secure. That's the first thing you do. Well, Minnesota's now secure. We've repelled the onslaught from Trump. Now it's time for us to go on the offense. So maybe it's time to send the Navy SEAL to Washington. Maybe it's time for a showdown between the Vietnam veteran and the draft dodger.
Do you actually mean a physical confrontation, or?
No, but if he wants it, he's in the Hall of Fame. Let's both get in the ring.
I mean, there is a UFC.
After all, he's in the Hall of he's in the Hall of Fame, isn't he?
Right. I mean, there is
even though he's never ever had a match.
Right. There is a UFC whole event going on imminently at the White House. Maybe they could extend it and have you against Trump.
Do you think he'd have the guts to do that? Are you kidding me?
Well, when he got
this guy.
Well, when he got shot,
wait a minute,
Jesse,
Piers,
to be fair to Trump.
Wait a minute, Piers.
To be fair to Trump, when he got shot,
I'm going to tell you.
When he got shot, he got back up and said, fight.
Oh, yeah, right. You ever hear of a blade job? Anyway.
A blade? What, you think it was fake?
Anyway, I don't know. Where's his scar today?
Somebody died, literally, sitting behind him.
I don't know. You know, come on, Piers. You're going to tell me this guy's a big hero now?
I thought that day he was.
That's what you're going to tell me?
That day he was.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, well, then he accomplished what he wanted out of you guys.
No, I think you can be heroic on one day and you can be less heroic on others. But if you ask me, was he heroic when he got shot? Yeah, and I think those who try to pretend he wasn't actually shot or anything, it's ridiculous.
You're right. You know what I feel bad about was that if he'd have joined us in Vietnam, we might have won, huh?
No.
He could have put us. Why did he run and hide when he could have joined us and led us to victory?
I don't think anything would have changed the fortunes of the United States in that war.
Yeah, probably not, considered he called us all suckers, didn't he?
What would you say to Trump if you had a chance to speak to him?
I'd prefer not to speak with him. I don't have really. What would I say to him?
I don't know.
You know, he's. To me, he has no courage. He never has. I'll tell you what he is, Piers. Everybody knows these people. You're with a group of guys, and there's always one guy who will start the fight and then hold your coat. That's Donald Trump. He'll start the fight, but he'll hold your coat, and then the next day he'll tell everybody how tough he was.
Jesse Ventura, it's great to see you've lost none of your fighting spirit in the many years since I last interviewed you. Thank you very much for coming on.
Piers, I'll never lose my fighting spirit. You take care, man, and if you dare to have me on again, we'll see.
You will always be welcome. Always be welcome, Jesse. Don't you worry about that. The mere fact the show is called Uncensored,
and
it
by
was
the way,
made for you.
By the way, say hi to Mick and Keith for me.
I will. I'll text them right now.
Okay, very good.
Thanks a lot, Jesse. Take care.
The moment Jesse Ventura opens his mouth in this interview with Piers Morgan, you can already feel it. This isn't going to be a calm, policy-heavy discussion. This is a detonation. And Ventura knows exactly what he's doing. What makes this exchange so gripping isn't just the politics. It's the raw, almost theatrical intensity Ventura brings. He frames everything through his identity. Navy SEAL, Vietnam veteran, son of war veterans. That's not accidental. It's strategic. He's building moral authority before he launches his attacks, especially against Donald Trump. And once that groundwork is laid, he goes full scorched earth. The most explosive part of this entire segment, not Iran, not NATO, not even the historical deep dive into 1953 Iran. It's the personal challenge. Send your own son to war. That moment hits like a hammer. Ventura reframes the entire war debate into something brutally simple and emotionally charged. If a leader believes in war, should their own family be on the front lines? By calling out Baron Trump directly, he transforms a geopolitical argument into a moral test. And whether you agree with him or not, it's undeniably powerful rhetoric. It forces viewers to confront a discomforting question. Are wars decided too easily by people who never have to personally pay the price? But here's where the deeper analysis kicks in. Ventura's argument is emotionally compelling, but logically, it's more complicated than he lets on. Democracies don't require leaders' children to serve as a condition for war decisions. And historically, many leaders have made wartime calls without personal family sacrifice. So while Ventura's framing feels righteous, it leans heavily on moral symbolism rather than practical governance. Still, that's exactly why it works. Because this isn't a debate meant to win on policy. It's meant to win on feeling. And in today's media environment, feeling often beats facts. Then there's his attack on Trump's military record, calling him a draft dodger, and contrasting that with his own family's service. Again, this is classic Ventura. He's not just criticizing policy, he's questioning character. He paints Trump as someone who starts the fight but holds your coat, which is a vivid, almost cinematic insult. You can picture it instantly. That's not accidental. That's storytelling. And that's what makes Ventura so dangerous in debates like this. He doesn't argue like a politician. He argues like a performer who understands how to stick in your mind. Now, let's talk about his Iran stance, because this is where things get really interesting. Ventura argues that the U.S. started the war and brings up the 1953 coup in Iran. This is a classic anti-interventionist perspective, one that suggests current conflicts are rooted in past American interference. And historically, he's not wrong about the coup. But what he does is compress decades of complex geopolitics into a single cause and effect narrative. That's powerful, but also selective. Because while the 1953 coup absolutely shaped U.S.-Iran relations, it doesn't fully explain modern tensions, proxy conflicts, or nuclear concerns. Ventura simplifies the story to make a broader point. America creates its own dushmans. And again, whether you agree or not, it's a message that resonates, especially with audiences already skeptical of foreign wars. Meanwhile, Piers Morgan plays the perfect counterbalance. He tries to pull the conversation back to mainstream arguments, terrorism, Iran's regional influence, nuclear threats, but he never fully controls the narrative. Ventura dominates the energy of the interview. Morgan asks questions. Ventura delivers speeches. And that imbalance is key. Because in media, the person with the strongest emotional delivery often wins in the eyes of the audience, regardless of who has the more nuanced argument. Finally, there's Ventura's flirtation with future political action, hinting at going to Washington, and even joking about a physical showdown with Trump. It sounds outrageous, almost absurd, but it serves a purpose. It keeps him unpredictable. It keeps viewers hooked. You're not just watching a political interview. You're watching a character who could explode at any moment. And that's the real takeaway here. This wasn't just an interview. It was a performance. One designed to provoke, polarize, and stick in your head long after it ends. Ventura's strategy is clear. Speak with conviction, frame everything in moral terms, and never back down. Whether he's right or wrong almost becomes secondary. What matters is that you feel like he means every word. And in today's attention economy, that's what keeps people glued to their screens.